first one, I'm going to talk about what constitutes as success within the agriculture business. So just for some background, I'm very registered as a PhD thesis that focuses on developing a framework for how to start agriculture in South Africa. So that's, for example, what one of the questions is, how would people already operate as government-based business. Now, as everybody knows, there is thousands of definitions for agriculture. So for this, we defined it as any activity or action that allows the student to visit a working or commercial farm for education, enjoyment, or to be actively involved. So what's key in this definition is it has to be a private-owned farm. So that excludes all government property, and in South Africa, many of our nature reserves are government-owned. So, for example, all of that is excluded from this stuff. Now, what is success? How do you measure success? You can get 1,000 theories around it, definitions around it. Is it be profitable, have customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, meet your goals? It's very, there's different ways to say it, right? So now, big question is, how do you determine if your agritourism business is a success? So I have decided to use the method of asking farmers that are already offering a successful agritourism product to ask them, what would you describe as your most outstanding achievement within your agritourism business? So this was a very personal question to the participants themselves to see what they say is the best, the most glamorous, the most exciting, the thing that they are the most proud of, to see how they would define whether they are successful or not. So, Africa, South Africa, small little part there, is divided into 9 provinces. And this study was only conducted in the Western Cape province. So why did we choose only that province? My master's is focused on the whole of South Africa. Now, that is geography-wise a big challenge traveling so far, etc. So the Western Cape has more than 40 different agritourism activities present in the farm. So it's the most developed province in terms of agritourism and also in terms of tourism. When you think about South Africa, Cape Town, Table Mountain, wine route, all of that is established in that province. So we thought it was a well-diverse province to include in the study. So we conducted interviews with 33 farmers that are already offering something. So we conducted these interviews last year, so basically in the middle of, or let's say post-COVID. So this means that their businesses should still have been operational after COVID. So obviously they are doing something right. Then there was different themes identified within their responses. I'm going to talk about the first three a bit later, so I'm just going to mention the rest. To receive recognition, several of them listed that we won that award and nominated for this. So getting recognition from outside was important for them. This was especially found within wine farms, where if they competed on a national or international level, that they would say that their farm is successful if they would win awards on that. Positive brand recognition, financial success. I mean, that's probably the biggest motive for any farmer is the financial part, so be successful in that. Employee satisfaction, and then still being operational after COVID. I think we conducted the same interviews pre-COVID, the answers would have been quite a bit different. So the first one is was to take pride in their work. Now, many times, or all of the time, the farmers started with nothing from nothing unless they inherited the agricultural business. So for them to come onto the family farm or to marry into the family farm, and then they started the business from scratch. So whether it's a foundation, they built it up. Many of the times, there's also a financial question in this. Many of the times they did it without external financial help. So you renovate one house with what you have, and then as soon as that becomes successful, they renovate another house. So it all builds onto each other. The second one is customer satisfaction. A lot of people boasted about people coming from all over the country to see them, to see their products, to buy their products, or to engage in, for example, a wine tasting experience. And then thirdly, was to provide a constant quality product. Now this was again very popular in wine tourism, but not only in the wine. For example, there was a lavender farm that supplies lavender products to so many of the it started with only the accommodation in town, and now they are also a nationally recognized brand. And they say because no matter what, even if they have to produce less, they still sell the same quality. And they say that that is what keeps them in business and successful. So what does all of this mean? So of course, success is very relative. These interviews were conducted with either the farm owner or then the business, the tourism business side manager or CEO or somebody that is, however, directly involved with the agritourism business. But the answers differ. It's influenced by the person that you ask, but personal satisfaction is very important in terms of taking pride in your work. There was a participant who said that his biggest achievement was to be able to produce the product or the service that the farm owner wanted him to have. So the farm owner had an idea and he went and implemented it, and now they are one of the most well-recognized farms in South Africa. So simply that of being able to achieve it. So there's a lot of personal achievements in offering an agritourism product. But of course, even though it is very relevant and very personal, every business still needs to set goals. Whether it's a financial goal, a personal goal, a social goal, goals are of course very important. Then just to show you, if you make an ordinary Google search on South African farm business, then you'll already see all these various products that are successful. Ostrich farm, tours, dairy farm, wineries, tea plantation, and this is also all of them are present in the Western Cape as well. So just to show you what we have to offer. Then, for example, when I searched that, I came on this page that shows that this is South Africa's oldest wine farm. South Africa's history is not that long, so while it might not seem very old to you, it's very, very old to us. But my point is, so the oldest wine farm is, while it is still operational today, it is open to the public today. I had the privilege of going to them, and they have incorporated so many tourism products. While they started out as a wine farm, you can take a tour of the farm, an audio tour of the farm that uses GPS to locate where on the farm you are, and it'll tell you about the grapes, about the building, about the history. And the farm is still privately owned. It's not government owned yet, I would say. But it just shows that when you have clear goals and when you know what you are striving for, then you can even create a product that lasts for 400 years. Thank you.
Now we do have a few minutes for questions and answers. If anyone has a question, please step up to the mic here, or I can cut to you if you'd like.
When's the best time to visit down there?
South Africa, anytime, always.
Not winter. I don't want winter.
Compared to this part, our winters are not that cold. But I'd probably say out of season would be November. It's hot then, there's not a lot of people then, so it's November.
Yeah, go ahead on
Yes, it's Alexander from Austria again. I'm becoming a fan from you. Yeah, I'm from the University of Innsbruck. I would be interesting. Have you developed a measurement system which can be used and afterwards to exactly measure these success factors?
Not yet standardized. Thank you for the question. It has not yet been standardized. So this was a very relative. This is simply a method that we used to achieve that goal, but there are many others that would probably also be a bit more academically correct to use for success. But since nothing in this area exists in South Africa at all, this is just our starting point. But I would say that there's still work to be done to standardize it. Yeah.
Other questions, comments, thoughts? Please come up to the mic. Thank you.
Just got my name's Tim. I'm a farmer from Australia. I've just got a question about you measuring success. The farmers that you've worked with, or the agritourism businesses, how do they measure or feel, how important to them is the recognition or respect from the other farmers in the district that are not doing agritourism?
Thank you for a question. That is a really hard one, since our farmers are not yet very open to the idea of collaboration. So for now, it is simply if your farm is successful, then you are good. If it's not successful, then so whether you're successful or not, other people would still not really collaborate. So I don't think that they strive for success in that terms, but yeah, it's a really hard question since it's not, we're working on getting farmers to collaborate more. So then also the success of one would be then the success of all, which is at the end what we are striving for.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're ready for our second presentation. And I'm sorry, I don't have your name on my sheet, but I know that we are looking at the lessons learned from Tuscany.
Okay, thank you.
And let me just get screen sharing set up.
Okay, hello to everyone. My name is Shpresim Domi, PhD. I work at Agriculture University of Tirana in Albania. So I'm from Albania, a small country close to Italy, close to Greece, and in the Balkan region. It's a small country, but mostly based on agriculture and tourism. That's why I think it was reasonable to say something about it, because Albania has a great potential for agritourism, since tourism and agriculture goes together in this concept. So next slide, please. However, in this case, I'm not talking about Albania. I'm talking about the one of the most famous and one of the most, let's say, good model in Italy about agritourism, which is Tuscany. So I did my postdoctoral research at the University of Florence in Tuscany region. And that's why I thought it would be good to share with you this case, this region, Italian model of related, of course, specifically related to the agritourism development. And we saw, I think even among scholars, and not only scholars, previous former presenters and so on, everybody said that agritourism is a good hope for rethinking about the agriculture, because it is suffering. I will say something later about it. So since agritourism is a good solution for agriculture, we have to look at which might be, let's say, factors that affect the success or good performance of such enterprises as agritourism in this case. So this more or less this was our focus. I'm co-author with Giovanni Belletti, professor at the University of Florence. and a colleague of mine, Agriculture University of Tirana, Orion, Georgia. As I was trying to do this short introduction, I think agritourism is a fantastic thing that is happening to agriculture, because agriculture is trying to restructure, is trying to adapt to the new way of development, socioeconomic development of all around the world, because not only Italy, not only Albania, not only America, it's all around the world. Agriculture is suffering due to youth abandonment, cost benefit, cost price squeeze, because the cost production is increasing, even in these cases, while considering the war in the Ukraine, for example, that we are experiencing recently, and so on. So agritourism is something that is very good, but not in generally speaking. I would say that it's a good solution, it's a good opportunity for even for small farmers. Saying what is a small farm, it's varies, because considering the world entire, so just America, or just Albania, just Italy, small farm, it differs considering different countries. But those that are in marginalized areas, those that do not have a lot of opportunities, agritourism brings to them a good opportunity, because agritourism attracts people to go there and so on, to do the activity, and the owner of the farm, it has the opportunity to gain some money. So more or less, the idea was to, as I said before, is to investigate the determinants of the agritourism performance in terms of the economic terms, to see what determines mostly, but not only, the economic success of agritourism. This research question, this investigation was done in Tuscany, as I was saying, just to present the Tuscany model. Tuscany, yes, it's one of the most famous region in Italy because it has the biggest number of agritourism compared to the other regions. Entire Italy has up to 25,000 agritourism certified by authorities, and just in Tuscany there are up to 5,424. Roughly 10% of the farms in Tuscany are agritourism farms, which is a good thing indeed. And they are very well diffused or spread into the Tuscany territory, agritourisms. And there are some cases, for example, because Tuscany has a lot of other municipalities, at 13 municipalities of this Tuscany region, the accommodation offer is 60% composed or offered by agritourism. I mean, agritourism at certain municipalities within the Tuscany region has a big role in terms of accommodation, at least, which is one of the activities of agritourism. As I was saying, yes, 28% has agri-restaurants, Italian style are called, I mean, food and beverage provided by agritourism, 28.8 of them. It's, and concerning even the previous question, it's very, very strongly promoted, and even at the low level, it's regulated the networking, let's say, mostly known as Strada del Vino, Strada del Sapore in Italiano, in Italian language. The law about agritourism in Tuscany, because the first one was in Trento, in Tuscany region was in 1987, the first law about agritourism. So it's, and lastly, but it's very important, because when we talk about agritourism, or if somebody asks me why I should go at agritourism, the major reason for me would be the food, even more the food when it's origin linked to the food. I mean, locally produced, traditionally produced, that product that has strong connection with the climate of that area and so on, which is origin products we named theoretically. So Italy is one of the most famous country within Europe officially registered such category of products, which are specifically known as PDO, PGI, and so on, but generally speaking are origin linked products. So products that has the strong relation with the territory, local territory. That's why I'm trying to present it, because it's one of the most factors attracting visitors to the agritourism in case of Tuscany. More or less, just to try to show why it's so high the density of agritourism in Tuscany, because it is very rich in history, of course. Renaissance, Florence is the place where the Renaissance has started. In the middle age, the food of Tuscany is very well known: cheese, wine, olive oil. And as I was trying to say, that on the right is the way or the density of networks, officially known networks, Strada del Vino, other types of networks over the whole Tuscany region. That is Tuscany region. But you know, agritourism in Tuscany and in Italy is well advanced because they now have laws and regulations about the standards. For example, those sunflowers up there, it means that like accommodation units, they gain stars, while agritourism in this case, they have, if they provide a certain level of quality on serving and so on, and facilities, they may have one sunflower up to 5 of them. So it's very well advanced model. I mean, Tuscany, but the standard level with sunflower is all over Italy, not only in Tuscany. Coming back to the scientific part of the presentation, is that we thought to investigate that, since agritourism is well spread, well known all over Italy and even in Tuscany, it was reasonable to see what determines their success, generally speaking. After we did some literature review, we decided to investigate, does the agritourism, let's say agritourism size and their type of offer in terms of food and beverage is important for them in terms of achieving economic objectives or not? More or less, this is the question here. The size, I mean number of employees, specifically speaking. If you have 10 employees or 20 or 100, does it count in terms of economic benefits or customer satisfaction, or the expenses that a tourist make on your agritourism? The more expenses a tourist made on your agritourism, the more you gain, of course, the more are your revenues. Then another question was, in framework of our concept model, was about agripreneurs characteristics. Agripreneurs is the owner, I mean, the owner of a farm that is transformed into agritourism. And some of the characteristics we thought it would be reasonable to investigate if they are important for economic benefits and success of the agritourism was in terms of the type of education, not the level of education, but type. I mean, if I'm the owner right now of agritourism and previously I have been engaged in agriculture, tourism, industry, and other sectors, does this count on the success of my agritourism? Another question. And then another one was about, okay, more or less, this was the type of education and age, being young or old, does this count? Youth people are more energized, theoretically speaking, it is assumed that they attract more tourists, they are energized, they are more innovative, but is this for real? And gender, being male or female, is important. Is there any difference? Then we thought, after we did some literature review, we thought, does the location count? I mean, you saw Tuscany is rich on food, local food, history, art cities, and so on. Does Tuscany has also is close to the sea, has a lot of different touristic attraction. So the question is, being close to this attraction is important or not? This was another question we addressed in this case, but more than just this one, specifically speaking, we considered if my agritourism is simply saying is within a marginalized area with development problems, infrastructure problems, and so on. or if my agritourism is close to the city, but not in this very, very close to the city. Medium advantaged area we named, or is advantaged area, does this counts for my success, my agritourism success? It was another question. And then we saw if I am close to one or more than one attractions, sea, thermal areas, art city, natural forests, natural protected area, and so on. If I'm close to one or two or three or four or five of them, does this count for my success? It was another question. So go ahead, please. So more or less, this was the conceptual model visualized. So we saw if these three, let's say, factors on the right, on the left side counts for the performance of agritourism in terms of economic and customer satisfaction, simply saying. Go ahead, please. Okay, we followed some, I'm skipping very fast this because it's quite scientific part. We did follow the necessary steps for methodology applying. We considered structural allocation modeling to analyze the data. We did survey online. We target 292. I mean, we had 292 valid responses because we target more than 5,380 agritourism, and the online survey gave us only 292 valid cases and so on. We applied, go ahead please, we applied multiplier linear regression. It's quite scientific issue to analyze. I mean, I'm trying to say that we did some steps in order to provide you now results that are reliable in terms of what we say it should be believed, more or less. Go ahead. So results is this one, that simply saying it resulted that if an agritourism is located on intermediate rural area in decline, yes, it is scientifically proved now by us at least that it counts positively in terms of economic performance, revenue we have. So if our agritourism is within an area, intermediate rural areas in decline, it means we will experience more economic benefits than those that are in marginal area. I was sad to hear and to see this result because I didn't like it, to be honest, because what is I say always is that agritourism is an instrument for rural marginal area development, mostly it should be at least. But in my case, in my study, didn't result in this one. Also, if we are in other areas, advantaged area, yes, of course, we'll experience more economic benefits. Another thing that it resulted, it was that quite interesting, this one. We have to be close to two attractions. I mean, coastal area and natural protected, for example, two touristic attractions. And we will experience more economic benefits. But if we will be close to one, no. If we will be close to two, three or more attractions, it doesn't count scientifically, at least. Only close to two. Well, these are numbers, figures, statistics. Sometimes it's not reasonable, but this is the result I got. So then it resulted that our customers are better satisfied, customers of agritourism that you own are more satisfied if you offer accommodation, recreational activities, and food and beverage. If you offer only accommodation, so farm and accommodation, it's not a good thing. I mean, your customer will not be very, very satisfied because, you know, when they come at the farm, it's reasonable, this one. They want to do a lot of things, but it's reasonable even from your side, because if you want to keep the customer as much as possible on your farm, you have to diversify as much as possible your offer. So it's reasonable, simple and reasonable, I think. Well, it doesn't count if you have different number of employees on your farm in terms of economic benefits, even in customer satisfaction. Because sometimes it's the thought that we have a lot of, the more employees we have, the more customer satisfied will be. Because, for example, 5-star luxury accommodation should have 1 customer, 1 employee is a standard for having 5-star, for gaining the 5 stars. So in this thinking in this way, it is assumed that the more employees we have, yes, the more our customers are satisfied. But in our case, is not in this way. And I think it's the last one. Yeah, it counts if your background, your previous experience as owner of agritourism, I'm speaking, if you were is working on commerce, trade, or other industry, your background, it seems that you will perform better on owning and managing your agritourism. I think it might be our reasons we gave it that yes, because even in Italy, starting agritourism, it was by these people. It wasn't from farmers. These people that had the sense of connections, sense of business, that came from industrial areas of Italy at 16th, they started agritourism. And they started agritourism by inviting their friends and so on. So this was created, the idea, more or less, simply saying, more or less, this way it was created, the idea of bringing people from urban areas to rural areas and so on. So in this case, I'm trying to say that those people that had the sense of doing business, they are advantaged to perform better in economic terms, managing better their agritourism than others, than being a tourism sector, than being a farmer. Your background is if it was a farmer. Go ahead, please. Okay. Just concluding is that this study is innovative by investigating this type of this dimension of location, because of course location it was previously investigated and so on. When we talk about size, education, previous and so on, we found the literature inconclusive results. That's why we were urged to investigate in our case. And this has implication for policymakers. For example, if the policymaker hear this study, it should be think about these determinants that determine the success of agritourism in order to support financial schemes, fiscal schemes, and so on. And yes, it is. I think it's reasonable for even be heard by agripreneurs, because I'm talking about what specifically determine the success of an agritourism. So this was my presentation. Thank you.
Very much. We have several minutes for questions. If anyone has a question, please go up to the microphone and ask away. Please.
Thank you for the presentation. Hello to everybody. I'm coming from Albania too, working at GIZ, German Agency for Development, that is for 30 years working in Albania, dealing with agriculture, and now recently in the last 4 years with the development of the agritourism. We have chosen, let's say in Albania, to follow the model of Italy, which is a successful one. So the legislation, policy, working with the product certification, etc., we have followed toward this direction. I don't want to ask if there are negative effects in the model of Tuscany, because I believe it is a successful one. But one of the most problematic in Albania, as maybe you know, is the challenge that the agritourism have for the young people to work there. So in your study, maybe the young people being a young entrepreneur or not a young entrepreneur didn't have any importance on how the business is going. But having young employees always coming to the business is a challenge that I guess all the agri-tourisms have. In Albania, it's really problematic for the people to work in the rural areas, maybe because of the communism time. So what Tuscany is learning us about this issue, if you have something to show.
Straight talking about our research, yes, it is true that it resulted that doesn't count the age of the agripreneur in terms of having an agritourism a successful or not agritourism. But our reasons trying to investigate such events, it was that yes, young people reasonably are more energized, they are more dynamic on providing new ideas, innovative ideas, which is a feature of agritourism itself, indeed. So apart what it resulted, yes, it's important to engage youth in agritourism. I mean, in the Italian case, cooperation between university and high schools is very well known, but cooperation is not only between agritourism in this case with universities separated, but is in the framework of more complex cooperation, even regulated by the law of network in the Tuscany, which is agritourism, university, academia, tourism agency, wine producers, local government, regionally based government in this case, and so on. So youth are indirectly engaged, volunteering. It is another feature of Tuscany case where youth people that wants to experience something different, they goes to the agritourism farms and experience for 1 week, 2 weeks, and actively engage in agritourism activities. So more or less, considering the youth and agritourism, this is the, let's say, description of the Tuscany case.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to go back to South Africa.
Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, I'm thinking maybe I did not think this through, so there might be a few things that are the same again. But I'll explain it a bit differently. So now this was based on my master's degree, so this is going a bit back, so at least my methodology is going to differ a bit. So looking at motivations for why South African farmers decided to start an agritourism business. Now I have a study leader who loves this slide, so you'll just see the layout of the presentation. Then, depending on the researcher you ask, you'll know that tourism is the world's biggest industry. I said this at a previous conference and everybody stared at me and I'm like, it's really in the literature that tourism is the biggest industry, but it is relevant to who you ask. And there's no universal definition. Now, agritourism is still very new in South Africa, both the practice of it and the research or any academics around it. So just again, the definition that we used, basically it does not include any government-owned land or farms. Now, just a quick framework of how we approached, well, both this and the other study is, and this is also the easiest way to explain agritourism, you'd probably know, you get the tourism industry, agricultural industry, you combine it. All of my research focuses on the demand, on the supply side, on the farmer and what the farmer has to offer on his farm. Then just for interest's sake, what is, well, this is everything that there is, but just for interest's sake, what is popular in South Africa? We have a lot of wildlife, game drives, 4x4 routes. Then for educational, we love wine farms that have wine tours and wine tastings and wine pairings and anything that you can think of with wine. Entertainment is not really a big thing in South Africa. I would have thought that the Afrikaans farmers would love a barn dance and things like that, but it is apparently not a thing, we found. Hospitality is the most well-known one, farm stay, farm accommodation. Then it has been added on a lot with restaurants, and spas are a new up and coming thing that people are adding to their farms. And then on-farm direct sales, such as farm stalls and especially you-picking enterprises. Then the advantages of agritourism. Just to quickly go through them as they link very strongly with the motives. For example, the income, the job creation, increase in quality of life. Now, my previous presentation said about what they perceive as success. And for a lot of them, it was their personal pride in their work. So that also links with the advantage of increasing their quality of life, economic development, or very basic. Now, the literature found three main areas or groups that you can categorize motives in. So it's social motives, emotional motives, and then economic motives. So this study focused on investigating the motives of South African farmers for offering an agritourism product or service. Now, this study was conducted throughout the whole of South Africa, so all 9 provinces. Of course, data was not specifically 50 in that province, 50 in that province. The Western Cape was the most represented province. Then this was questionnaire based. So at the end, 557 questionnaires were successfully completed. So this was for all farmers. So you own a farm, you manage a farm, you live on a farm, you completed that. The second part of the question asked if you are currently offering an agritourism business. And for that part, 147 said yes. So the rest of the results are based on that 147 farmers distributed among the 9 provinces. So interesting comparison, since I'm doing both presentations now. For this, the majority or 92% were male. And when I had personal interviews asking for farmers that are, or only approaching farmers that are offering agritourism, I had almost only 60% that were male. So gender does differ in all of this. For this, only 48% had tertiary education. For the personal interviews, I had about 90% with tertiary education, a lot with master's degrees, MBAs. So when you're comparing a very successful agritourism business with just any kind of agritourism business, you also get a different profile of the person that is actually offering the product. And then another one is 88% of them are not part of any tourism organization. So big gap, and a great idea for future research. So now for the results. This was already a published paper, so this is just to give you an idea. But the basic concept of this is 2 factors were found for motives. So the first one is the preservation of culture and heritage. And the second factor, surprise, economics. So after I submitted this paper, I did the PhD section the interview section on farmers' motives. So just to show you for interest's sake how it compares. It is exactly the same. So this is just more detailed. So for the interview side, for the questionnaire side that focused on the whole province, mainly economic, that consists of an additional income, and then other things such as using your farm resources. Now for the interviews, they were just organized a bit differently, but still the most important one was generate an additional income. The second most important one was to use your farm resources. And they should sell a quality product that also links with what they would say is a success within their farm. So their motives, how they perceive as success, there's a clear pattern that you can see here. And then the third one is conservation. Now, the reason that I assume conservation was not as big in the previous study was because this one was focused in specifically the Western Cape. And the Western Cape has a lot of government support for conservation. So that also makes it, if the same study was applied to a different province, economic and agricultural focused, you'll see it's the same, but there are still differences such as the conservation part. Then this is technically a discussion on the PhD one, not on the one, but it's applicable to both. Economic motives are the primary motives, as you'll see, is reasons to why people do it, as you see to what the advantages are of doing it. Then while emotional and social motives are secondary, they are almost more important, I would say. Now, this is not an academic saying, but from a personal side, are there any farm owners here that offer agritourism products? Okay, so the biggest part of that is you need to open your farm to them. You need to invite complete strangers to enter your space, to be in your area, in your products, in your equipment, in everything. So the social and economic part is so important. While it's not the most important, but I mean, it is something that should really, really be considered, especially since this is part of the bigger part on how do you develop it. You need to consider every aspect. Then for future studies, while this is the motives, like I said, I'm looking at the demand side. We don't have any idea on the supply side. We don't have any idea on the demand side. So South Africa offers a lot of different products, but we don't actually know what tourists want. So if anybody wants to come do some research in South Africa, there are loads of opportunities. Personality traits, I'm touching on that one in my new study as well, to see if you are the person opening your farm to tourists, what do you need? You need a personality to work with them, or I've even found some people say that they do not like people, so they appoint people who like people. So it can go anyway. And finally, but that's more of a marketing question, the unique selling point, because you have 10 wine farms, for example, located in the same area. What makes yours special? Thank you.
Like before, if anyone has any questions in the room, feel free to go up to the microphone, and if you want the microphone brought to you, just raise your hand.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. I'm just curious because I do similar research into motivations of farmers in the Arctic, which is more sheep farming, but we found that economic reasons are actually the least important to people there. So I was just wondering what you think the difference might be.
That is thank you. That is a very interesting point. I haven't thought about why it would not be economic. For most of us, sorry, for most of the farmers, in the first place, to open your farm is a really big thing. So many farmers don't do it if they don't actually need to do it. I mean, we have a lot of, especially safety questions and political questions, and there's also a lot of climate change, not climate change, just in general. South Africa is very, very diverse in terms of when you can make it and when you cannot make it. So I think this is, for most people, this is rather a last resort, if I put it that way.
Okay, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Let me first say we are nowhere near where Italy is. Let me just say that first.
No, short question.
Yeah.
Do you think always a farmer has the motive to be transformed into agritourism? And if there is, it might be some reasons which might be. I mean, I don't want to transform my farm into agritourism. What hinders, what makes me doesn't want it? to transform my farm into agritourism, I mean, because it's a policy making issue, this one, because in some countries, I mean, they are enforced to urge farmers to transform their farm into agritourism, but they didn't want. In France happened this one, but however.
Okay, thank you for the question. So South Africa has a lot of politics behind farmers and farming. For example, there's no government support. So if you do transform, nobody's going to help you. Nobody's going to, from the government side, nobody really cares. From a personal side, we have a lot of safety issues. So many, for example, we have a new legislation that says if a farm worker stays on your farm as a farm worker for more than, I think, 2 years, then they have living rights to your farm. And then you can never kick them off. So 2 or 3 years, something like, so for example, for that reason, if you have an agritourism business, you need to employ people. If there's no place close, for example, that. And then where I had a third one now that I thought about. And also part of the government restructuring is they are trying, or not trying to, they're trying to reassign farms. So in terms of if another family lived there 200 or 300 years ago and they have a claim to your farm, then this is a very political thing. So there's a big fear in farmers right now that the government's just going to take away your land and give it to somebody else. So for them, it's also more the less you do, the less somebody else knows about you, the less likely they are to come and take your farm. So it's very politically driven in many times, the motive.
I have a question from online. Pierre asked, do you think that age plays a role in who starts an agritourism operation?
Can I just repeat the question?
Yes. Yeah. Do you see age playing a role in starting agritourism operation on the farm?
Okay, if age plays a difference, I originally would have said yes, age does play a difference. But given the average age of my participants in my PhD that I had for the interviews, most of them only started the agritourism business like after 60. So you'd think that if the new generation takes over the farm, they'd want to do different things like that. But a lot of people are when they are like when you're old and you quit your job. Retire. I'm so sorry. Like when they retire, they would move over to a farm to for a more peaceful lifestyle and things like that. So no, I don't think that is age limits a person's choice. Yeah.
Sure, just build on that question. So Cole Ambrock from Lakeland College in Canada. So your one slide mentioned generational, like if it was 2 or 3, I believe it was. So is there a correlation to that question to what was just asked in that statistic? Because I know in Canada, we're finding retirement age of farmers just doesn't exist. My parents are going to be 70 soon and they have no dreams of retiring. So what we're seeing is the younger people are starting agritourism as a place to make money to be on the farm. Otherwise, we have to be in urban cities making a wage. So did you see a correlation in that for young people coming back to have a spot in the farm, or this is purely older people just diversifying?
Okay, thank you for the question. Okay. That statistic is based on the quantitative data. So my in-depth knowledge on them is very limited. So I don't really have a specific answer on that. But in terms of those ones that I had interviews with, a few of them had, I would say, like a family farm. In terms of like you said, the other generations come in. This one is solely in charge of the accommodation. This one is solely in charge of the spa. So limited, but the ones that I found work together really well. But they don't work, the whole family doesn't work on one project. Each one has their own project, but they do it on the same farm. So yes, that is becoming more popular. Yeah. Yeah, like a business.
It comes to a point that it comes to investment.
Yeah.
My question is almost like the last one, and it's directed to both speakers. You speak with passion about farmers, and we're talking generational farmers and family transition. Do you include lifestylers that come from the city and purchase a block of land and build an agritourism business in a few short years as being farmers in your studies? New farmers.
New farmers.
Like lifestyle changes. Yep.
Yeah. So please, you can also come and answer. So for this part of this study, we did see people that sell everything they have at some point and then go buy a farm and farm. However, it is said we do work out how long they have actually been farming. So that does play a role in the statistics, but we haven't analyzed the data differently compared to, that's the answer. We haven't compared it.
If I got the question right, you mean, does the agritourism will transform agriculture and making agriculture as a new way, or it was that the question? I mean, the new farmer, will be.
Farmers have been farming for 400 years. And in Australia, we've got farmers been farming for 200 years.
Yeah.
But there's also agritourism businesses that have only been in business for 2 or 3 years. And do we call them farmers? Do we call them agritourism operators? And my question is that collective of operators included in your studies?
It wasn't specifically targeted to make this separation. It wasn't. Yep. But the way we think, what is agritourism? It should be the first one. I mean, you have to have a tradition. You have to have a tradition and sell the tradition. I mean, not selling the products that you touch now. Agritourism, it means to sell that thing that you don't touch it, you don't see it, but you feel it. Tradition is one of this. History and what generation by generation has created your family, even the way it is produced, the dishes or another product and so on. So your question is straight to the point, and I really support it. But in the policy making perspective speaking, or market offer, demand, and so on, it's a matter of how innovative are you on providing the best offer compared to the others. But however, in the core of the agritourism offer, that dimension stands. But in my study, it wasn't the purpose itself.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. Yeah, go ahead.
I just would like to answer here a bit, because we might, with our study, also we have done it in South Tyrol, so we cover a bit of Italy. And also in a part of Austria. Authenticity is a key part for the future of agritourism. So we see also that when agritourism becomes too successful, that it really doesn't feel real. So like the Disney agritourism, it doesn't work anymore, because tourists are very sensible on this. What is key, and I will talk on this on my next presentation on Thursday, is about cooperation between farmers, because a farmer has not to do agritourism, but in a cooperation with another farm which does agritourism, that could be a success factor. So you don't have to offer sleeping accommodation or parts of the whole agritourism, but if you do a tour in your farm, that really works well, and it's a very successful business model. And this is something we have to consider in future. Also, yes, there might be a family which wants to take over a farm and just want to do agritourism, but it needs then another farm which does this since 100 years, that it becomes authenticity. Therefore, collaboration between the farms and the tourism sector is key, and will be a key success factor of the future. Okay.
And you have a question? Okay, and thank you.
Thank you
Right,
very
that's
much.
our time.